Hello and welcome to CTV News Across Canada for Tuesday, April 1st. We've got the top local stories from coast to coast, stories that affect you and the country. Thanks for joining us.
In Barrie, the devastating ice storm left almost everything covered through the weekend. The damage, severe.
Woke up at 12 o'clock and I had a giant tree land right on my car.
All the Barrie, Innisfil area, I'm trying to get everyone helped and looked after.
Widespread power outages, leaving nearly 500,000 people in the dark at one point. The weight of the freezing rain, the cause of down power lines and down trees all over Barrie.
We've seen most of the city come back up at this point. Under 20% is still in the dark.
Normally quiet neighborhoods, but now the sound of wood chippers and generators dominating neighborhoods in Innisfil and Barrie. For those without support or a chainsaw, it was a monumental task.
I just wanted to get this out of the driveway. You know, I'm kind of trapped in my driveway today.
School buses canceled, schools closed because of the power lines, closed roads, and outages. Police reporting countless accidents since the storm began, and many towns in the region have declared a state of emergency. Others have enacted a special weather event. At one point, the entire town of Innisfil was without power. The mayor was forced to declare a special weather event that will remain in effect until at least tomorrow.
We rely on 4 feeders from Hydro One. Typically, we might lose one. We were down all 4.
About half of the town is now back online. The mayor hopes to have the rest online sometime tonight. Many people in Sandy Cove Acres are simply waiting for the power to return so they can get back to normal.
There's lots back this way and that way and the other side. It's just crazy. Just going out to try and get some candles for warmth because there's no heat.
Power.
No.
All right, back live at the north end of Barrie. Now, we should tell you that the mayor of Innisfil telling me today she hopes the majority of those residents in Innisfil still without power get back on at some point tonight. And word late this afternoon, in fact, just a few minutes ago to our newsroom from the Catholic School Board in Simcoe, Muskoka, telling us that schools in the District of Muskoka, the North Zone, the Central Zone, and Wasaga Beach will have their schools closed tomorrow. Schools will be open for everyone else. Reporting live in Barrie, I'm Rob Cooper, sending it back to the newsroom.
This is the entryway to the driveway, and I just had to go all the way down there instead of driving it.
Faraz Rashid was away from his home in Rockport this weekend, west of Brockville. But when he came back Monday morning, this is what he saw.
We're just glad it's not as worse as it could have been.
The ice storm ripped through cities like Barrie and Peterborough and hit parts of eastern Ontario. The difference here, Sunday night's rain didn't freeze, instead melting all of the ice that had accumulated over the weekend.
This is the first day since these weather systems started in the wee hours of Saturday morning where crews have been able to work without additional outages being created from weather.
Just getting a look at some of the aftermath here along the Thousand Islands Parkway. A lot of it looks like this, just trees that have completely broken, branches that are falling everywhere. But even if you kind of look around closely at the grass and even some little marsh areas along the parkway, you just see a lot of stuff like this, which looks like a fence, but these are all just little tiny branches that have all frozen off of the trees that they're on. It'll be a long cleanup process along the parkway.
We've had an incredible number of phone calls from both residents, calls for service from the fire department, everything from down power lines to CO2 alarms.
For Michelle Miller's dog Henry, it just means more sticks on the ground. She's grateful she's not among the tens of thousands of Eastern Ontario residents who lost power.
It flickered a couple times yesterday, but fortunately has stayed on.
Residents in several homes along the Thousand Islands Parkway now have their power back, while thousands north of Kingston are still waiting. Jack Richardson, CTV News, Rockport, Ontario.
BC drivers have grown fed up with the high cost of fueling up.
Since it's like 190 something, I'm gonna only feel a little bit. Can we get your thoughts on gas prices?
I think it's a joke.
Tomorrow, April Fool's Day, it'll be no joke. They can expect a reprieve on gas prices, which have increased over the past week, leading up to the NDP tabling its legislation Monday to eliminate the consumer part of the carbon tax, expected to save 17 cents a litre.
Like many British Columbians, I've been watching the price of gas go up in the 10 days since we made this announcement.
Also gone, rebates tied to the tax for lower-income families. The lost revenue from axing the tax expected to be $2 billion. The NDP says it will keep the carbon tax on industrial polluters. Some worry that remaining portion may increase and get passed on to consumers.
There's still a carbon tax in British Columbia. It's just going to be a sneaky, hidden back-end carbon tax instead of this consumer-facing price at the pump.
The death of the consumer part was a campaign promise by the NDP after mounting pressure from the Conservatives over affordability. The NDP hold a one-seat majority cushioned by the support of the two Greens, who today say they won't support this plan.
If you're going to take out the consumer carbon tax, what are you going to replace it with? We've had a huge increase in emissions.
Conservative leader John Rustad has said his party would take down the NDP at its first chance. Today, he emphasized that his party wants to see the industrial part of the tax gone too.
Last year, when the Premier was asked by Pierre Poilievre to join 7 other premiers in axing this tax, this Premier responded by saying he's living in, I quote, a baloney factory, end quotes. Will the Premier commit today to adding a double backflip to his routine and axe the industrial carbon tax?
The Provincial Conservative Party would bring down the government because the government was trying to get rid of the carbon tax is the most bizarre possible interpretation of politics.
But all parties are expected to debate late into the night Monday on whether to do away with a tax that's fueled plenty of division.
And Rob, we are expecting that bill to pass, but the debate could go very late tonight.
Well, that's right, Nafisa. It is hard to imagine the Conservatives would ultimately vote against the thing they persuaded the NDP to do, but we're hearing the vote could go as late as midnight. We'll have an update, of course, at our late cast. And all of this also does underscore just how fragile and tenuous that majority that the NDP have of one seat. Nafisa.
Rob Buffum live in Victoria tonight. Thank you, Rob.
For just over a week, Toronto police say a man roamed the downtown core, allegedly stabbing people he did not know.
On March 23rd, it was an underhoused man that was sleeping, and obviously unprovoked, the suspect went up to him and did stab him.
Police gathered surveillance video and began their search for a suspect, and yet the attacks kept occurring.
On March 28th, the victim was walking, and he came up from behind and then stabbed him.
Strangers being knifed between 9 p.m. and midnight in what police are calling surprise attacks.
On March 29th, the victim was at his place of work and was just out on the phone talking to somebody, and he came up from behind and stabbed him.
Yesterday, police armed with the suspect's description made an arrest, and 23-year-old Mackenzie Duncan was charged with 18 counts, including 2 charges of attempted murder and 3 counts of assault with a weapon. Beyond that, he was charged with 3 counts of fail to comply with a release order.
I can't really comment on that, but obviously it would be concerning. He's out on bail from previous charges.
In response, the Toronto Police Association renewed its call for bail reform today, saying, "Our members are disappointed but not surprised to learn that a man arrested for 3 separate random incidents of violence in downtown Toronto was already on bail for other serious charges. In fact, a judge granted bail even though he was wanted in another jurisdiction. When will this revolving door end for this person? And at what point will the safety of our communities and members come first?" According to court documents obtained by CTV News, Duncan was already facing charges in Toronto dating back to August 2024. Charges which include sexual assault, harassment, threatened death, and carrying a knife. And beyond that, in September, he failed to return to court. Meanwhile, Toronto police are warning people to be aware of their surroundings.
Be aware of what's going on around you. If you have headphones in, turn them down so you can hear what's going on around you. Don't have your face in your phone.
2 of the victims in these attacks sustained serious injuries. Now, Duncan was expected to make an appearance in a virtual bail court today. However, he never took the prisoner's box. We are told that he'll be back in court tomorrow. Reporting live, Janice Golding. Now back to Nathan.
There is a process for individuals to put those questions forward so that every Albertan can have a say.
Responding to a question on support for separation, Alberta's Premier says she is looking to hear from all Albertans post-election, giving voters a chance to raise any issue, including leaving Canada.
I'm calling it now the What's Next panel. We just want to go around the province, see how people are feeling, and see if there are any other referendum issues that they want us to put on the table.
An idea that might sound familiar.
Albertans have been working for Ottawa for too long.
It's time for Ottawa to start working for us.
In 2019, then Premier Jason Kenney launched a 9-person fair deal panel to get Alberta a better deal within Canada. This political scientist says while the two panels might sound similar, they are not.
This seems to be a specific attempt to gin up anti-Ottawa, anti-Liberal attitudes in the aftermath of an election that isn't even over yet.
Smith's panel proposal comes within weeks of her threat of an unprecedented national unity crisis if the next PM doesn't meet her 9 demands within 6 months.
Stoking national unity crises that don't currently exist is certainly something new for the Premier of Alberta and should be worrisome not only for the next Prime Minister but for all Canadians.
I think she's articulating the so far unarticulated sentiments of most Albertans. Easterners just don't get it.
Albertan sentiments will be articulated in the upcoming election. Recent polling puts our province at odds with most of the country, showing Conservatives with 53% support on the prairies versus 36% across the rest of Canada, with Mark Carney leading across Canada as preferred PM with 47%. That support drops down to 29% in our region.
We're fully aware that we have been treated very badly by Laurentian Canada since before we were even provinces. So it's not alienation, it's just there's only so much you can take.
Canadians head to the polls April 28th. Shaylan Skolsky, CTV News, Edmonton.
1 step forward and 2 steps back. That's how it feels for Brenda Moberg, whose husband Earl has been missing for more than a year.
I don't want them to forget him. Some people, I think, may think that he's found already.
The 81-year-old man with advanced dementia went missing while on a walk on December 12, 2023. He hasn't been seen since and is now presumed dead. Brenda's been fighting to receive her husband's Canadian Pension Plan survivor's benefit, but her application was initially denied as she was told she needed to prove her husband was dead.
Number one, they wanted a death certificate, and then they wanted the police reports, both of which I couldn't get.
But she says a recent review prompted a change of tune.
I got a call from Service Canada saying that they had accepted the letter and they deemed Earl dead as December 12th, 2023, the day he went missing.
This just in time for what would have been her and Earl's 50th wedding anniversary. But with this small victory comes yet another battle.
It was disappointing. We put so much work into this.
Earl's daughter Britt has been calling on the federal government to create a national silver alert system to send notifications to cell phones when a vulnerable senior goes missing.
It's very important to get the public aware as fast as possible so that we can find people alive.
She had collected more than 4,600 signatures from across Canada for a federal petition and was ready to bring it to Parliament when an early election was called and Parliament was dissolved. This means all petitions not yet presented were withdrawn and the Mobergs have to start the whole process from scratch.
I'm very committed to this and, I want to see this through, and I think that this could have saved my father's life, and I think that this could save other people's lives in the future.
Now, Britt says despite the setback, she plans to relaunch the petition later this spring, and the earliest she can do that is May 19th.
So, Danton, what about all of the signatures she already collected? Do those still count?
No, Marilee. Britt has been told the signatures collected prior to Parliament being dissolved cannot be reused. But the Mobergs are hopeful they'll be able to gather even more signatures this time around.
All right, let's hope so. Thanks, Danton.
Suspensions, fines, and arrests are all possible after on and off ice incidents at a senior hockey game in Miramichi Friday night.
We've never had nothing like this happen before, no.
Fights broke out late in Game 6 of the Beausejour Senior Hockey League Championship Final between Miramichi and LC Pugtag.
That extended to the hallway where, unfortunately, in our rink, both teams go down the same hallway, so there was a little altercation there.
Miramichi Northman co-owner Doug White says the team hired extra security for the packed house, but fights still broke out in the stands.
You can take steps to try to prevent this stuff from happening. Unfortunately, sometimes it does happen.
Over 200 minutes and penalties were called during the game. In a statement to CTV News, the league president says, "This matter is under review by our disciplinary chairman and the league's executives. The BSHL has a meeting with all teams on April 12th where this will be discussed, and final decisions on possible suspensions and fines will be announced later that week. The Miramichi police say no arrests have been made, but the matter is still being investigated.
The worst thing about it, like, it was a great hockey series and everybody's focused on the fight that took place at the end of the game and the fights in the crowd.
Suspensions are also pending after an under-18 provincial championship game in North Rustico, Prince Edward Island Saturday. Hockey PEI says they're extremely disappointed, calling the match between Kensington and North River disgraceful. Several major penalties and gross misconducts were called. Derek Haggett, CTV News, Moncton.
He was a very kind and caring, loving person. He would give anybody the shirt off his back.
This is how Candy Gorico described her son Saxon Halfyard. He was killed in a collision Wednesday morning on Crowchild Trail Southwest. Halfyard's car was shifting to the right lane when another vehicle clipped his, causing it to go into the east shoulder of Crowchild Trail, hitting the large concrete base of a support pole. His vehicle caught on fire and Halfyard died on scene.
Just absolutely devastated. He's my boy. I'm his #1 fan, and he's my bud.
Saxon was on his way to the Alberta Children's Hospital for an appointment. His father says he loved his pets, playing sports, enjoyed listening to rap music, and most of all, he had a big heart.
The most kind, loving, gentle kid you could ever imagine. He always left an impression on people.
Another one of Saxon's favorite things to do was go survival camping with his stepfather, Tommy Fenlon.
Every moment with Saxon was something different. They're all amazing and impossible to sift through.
In addition to his parents, Saxon is also being mourned by his siblings. During this difficult time, the family is appreciative of the community's support.
It's nice to see the relationships he's been creating outside of our family and seeing the community he's brought together.
He didn't hide from anything. He loved immensely. He loved everybody around him, and he pursued life.
A memorial tribute for him is planned for April 11th at Bethany Chapel. Tyler Barrow, CTV News, Calgary.
This wall is sitting empty where my favorite painting was going to go.
Pamela Gravenor-Nance had plans to hang this watercolor in her living room. Her prized possession was painted by her late father, Eric Gravenor. Instead, the wall and many others in her new home are empty. Half a dozen of her father's paintings are missing.
I treasure them so much, and I wake up in the morning thinking about it. It actually makes me nauseous. It's unbelievable that this would happen. These are 3 paintings my dad did of the Laurentians, where I lived for 30 years.
Gravenor-Nance moved from Rigaud to New York in February. She hired Transcontinental Moving. She says her belongings were picked up on February 12th and arrived in the States 3 days later. That same day, she started unpacking her paintings.
I got a very funny feeling. Pieces are missing, and I started recalling particular ones.
Using photos and checking the inventory list, she says these 6 watercolors went missing sometime during the move. The moving company doesn't know what happened, saying the truck with her belongings was locked at all times.
The shipment never moved from the truck. It's almost impossible that got missing through the move.
Owner Levin Sozin says he has tried his best to help.
I even called the other customer just in case, but nobody had any clue about the picture boxes.
Gravenor's signature is on the paintings, and there is an appraisal on the back. But for his daughter, this isn't about money.
These are my most prized possessions, and you can have your father's artwork and not necessarily like it, but I've lived with these paintings for 30 years, and I just adore them.
Gravenor-Nance says she's going to file a police report and has contacted local galleries. In the meantime, she plans to keep this living room wall empty. She's holding out hope the irreplaceable art will be returned. Olivia O'Malley, CTV News.
After 5 years of what's been described as a life-saving service, the Duke Street CTS site is closing.
This is a heavy day for all of us, for the people who work here and for the people who have been using the site since 2019. We know that we have saved at least 1,000 lives.
Despite a court injunction allowing 10 sites across the province to remain open, the reality is it's too little, too late for now.
We have lost our provincial funding for the program. Today's the day our Health Canada exemption expires to legally operate, and we have lost our location.
Phillips expects many of their clients will continue to use, but in more dangerous places.
This is going to happen in their apartments or in the street or in public places, and then we'll be seeing these turn up at paramedic calls and in the emergency.
Saxon says they are committed to reopening during the injunction once they secure funding. They just need to figure out where that money will come from.
I guess that's the question for all of us. We'll be seeking that funding from wherever we can get it.
With the province an unlikely source, some are looking to the region to step in. Councillor Jim Erb is the chair of the region's Community Services Committee. He says it's time to focus on the new homeless and addiction recovery team funded by the province, a plan that does not include safe consumption.
What I hope we would be able to do is recognize that we have to move to a new model and work at that with the staff, with the House of Friendship, and with the Community Health Care Centre. We're going to operate the new heart model.
For now, Saxon is opening a new space off Victoria Street at the end of April.
People will be able to access primary care, harm reduction education, peer groups, nursing for wound care. These sites will still be accessible. We won't have supervised consumption.
Now, along with the shutdown, Saxon will also lose the 63 full-time and part-time staff that ran the site, and of the 9 other CTS locations that have been shut down by the province, only one is able to remain open during the court injunction period. Tony.
Okay, CTV's Jeff Pickle with the latest on supervised consumption sites. Jeff, thank you so much.
Up to 300 people depend on the daytime drop-in program at Arcade Street Mission each day. It offers support as well as basic needs like food, washrooms, laundry, and showers.
It's not a crime to be poor and homeless, but there does need to be a place for people to go.
But funding allocated by City Hall expires on Tuesday. Back in February, Council abruptly changed course, looking to redirect the funds towards more overnight spaces, but ultimately only found 16 beds. So now Council must decide this week if the remaining $611,000 should be redirected back to the daytime drop-in program at 696 Dundas. Earlier this month, the issue deadlocked a Council committee after Councillor Susan Stevenson reminded them about a previous decision not to continue clustering shelter services in business districts.
Councillors voted to say not on the main street of BIA in November for the winter, the upcoming winter. So what would have those councillors change their mind to now say yes as we approach spring, summer?
The issues that all these villagers raising aren't ignored. They are real. But the solution is not to shut it down. The solution is to ensure that we have enough to meet the need.
Arcade talks about being a voice for the minority. So am I. These people do not have a voice in the Medallion buildings, in the Toll Puddle buildings.
And over the weekend, Stevenson posted these pictures on social media of the damage caused to a business when it was broken into through the wall.
It is costing taxpayers to bring people here, and then it's costing taxpayers to pay for CIR, bylaw, and police to work against that. Wouldn't it be better to not do it here?
Campbell says the ARC has looked for a different location to provide daytime drop-in services, but that requires consistent funding and a willing seller or landlord.
What worries me most is if we're not funded, those businesses have nowhere to send people to. It will become exclusively the job of the BIA and the businesses to solve.
A petition by Arcade Street Mission to maintain funding for the daytime drop-in program has received over 1,300 signatures since Friday. Council will make a final decision on Tuesday. Daryl Newcomb, CTV News.